This video is to explain how I simplify the process of entering assignments from Khan Academy into my gradebook. Doesn't actually directly put them in there, but it organizes them in a much easier to read fashion. Now, as you may be aware, you can download each class's grades as a CSV file, as a comma separated file, comma delimited. So do that for your class. You have to do this for each class, and the way I'm doing it, I think you have to do it each time you want to update your grades, but it won't be that bad. It's not a fully automatic process, but it's a very useful process and much better than trying to read the grades off of the screen. After you've downloaded them, open the file in Microsoft Excel. I don't think Google Sheets works for this. I know it couldn't read the pivot table when I created one and I opened it in Google Sheets. However, your mileage may vary. Maybe it does support these pivot tables, but this example will be done in Microsoft Excel. First thing I always do is I save the file as a XLSX, the new format for Microsoft Excel. You probably want to save it anyway, and I just do that for my own edification and to make sure the file is saved. So once you've downloaded it and you're in Excel, you'll have data that looks a bit like this. I've already emphasized the important columns. So for me, I'm using assignment name, student name. Names have been changed to protect the innocent and to support FERPA. Score best ever. So Khan lets you redo assignments as many times as you want and keep the best score. There's an option over here, score due at the due date, if that's your preferred way of scoring your students. And then points possible. We'll come back to that column in a second because there's a minor thing we have to tweak on that column to get the best results possible. But let's just go straight to the results. So in order to reorganize this, because if you'll notice, they have each assignment and each student and their score. These video assignments don't have scores because videos don't get scores, but exercises do. So notice over here, we have, okay, now, so you'll notice here we have an assignment identifying supplementary, complementary, and vertical angles. Student A got 6 out of 7. B kid didn't complete the assignment, so the possible points is left blank. I'll show you how to address this later. And then we scroll down some more. Let's look at some more examples. Articles don't give you any data, unfortunately. Maybe if you could give like a 1 out of 1, you can give at least credit for completing articles. And then more exercises. So you get a 4 out of 4 here, a 3 out of 4 here, an incomplete out of 0. So let's look at this now. That's a lot of information. Scrolling through this isn't any easier than scrolling through the screens on Khan Academy, but we can insert a pivot table. Pivot table on, I think it automatically selected the whole sheet, which is good. That's what I want. So I'm going to have it create a new worksheet. Boom. So we got a new worksheet. Now this is the part, so this part needs to be recreated for every class and every time you download new data, but this part is actually very quick. So if we highlight over here, student name, score best ever, and possible points. This is actually their overall score for all of the scored assignments, for all of the exercises, and for all of the quizzes that have been downloaded. However, that's usually not what we're looking for. So this one last piece will be our magic pill, so to speak, to grade exactly the assignments we want to grade. So insert slicer and just pick assignment name. So now we can choose which assignments we want the grades for. So for example, by default, they're already all selected. I'm going to sort of click one, click the first one, Angle Basics. And boom, we can see everybody's score on Angle Basics. I can read this pivot table directly and insert it into, I've been inserting them into my grade book like this, just copying them over. Now at this point, you can copy individual instances of pivot tables to a Google Sheets or to another sheet in Excel. And if you have a macro or some other processor plugin that will copy your grades, super. There is a program, GradeTransferer, that will, if you create a column for, actually no, if you just highlight the columns in Google Sheets, it will copy your grades directly into Infinite Campus and several other sites. So GradeTransferer, I'll put the note in the comments about what the plugin is for that. Someone at that plugin was very helpful with me for figuring out some of my technical issues. So I'll call this a free plug for the plugin for the Google Chrome extension. Okay, so on with the pivot table. So notice there's a lot of assignments. I believe the grade ones are automatically the ones that don't have scores. I don't know why it's conveniently that way, but that is very convenient. But let's look at, I like to group my grades. If I give several exercises over the course of a week, and I might give one grade for all of those exercises. A lot less entering in the grade book. So you hold the Shift key and you can select multiple assignments, and there you go. You have if you make your point value out of 26 in your grade book, you could just copy this literally, or you can also say you want to make this be out of 100 points. You could do equals. I'm gonna go ahead and round it up for you. And I'll do B26 divided by C26. Sorry, those are the wrong numbers. I was looking at the values, not the number of the row. Oops. Times 100 will make it a numerical, fully numerical value. So this is as a percentage. If you want to make this part right here, if you're doing it like, I like to do different point values to give greater weights and for students to practice learning averages. If your point value is say 30, you can multiply that times 30 and it'll give you your points out of 30. But if you're copying, if you're using GradeTransferer to put it in the book, you could select those specific columns, or if you just select this and you make it out of 26 points, or you can make it out of 25 with an extra point for bonus, you can create that in your grade book and transfer it over. Now that's all. It's as simple as creating the pivot table and selecting the specific assignments. If you click one without the control, it'll deselect the others. Then you can do the control again and select various. Control and select is a very common way of selecting individual doing group selection of individual items. Okay, now let's move on to my final notes. First note, you got to fix that possible points column if you want all your points to be consistent. That's not necessarily important. It'll, in the sense that if you're copying and pasting It'll still give the correct sum. If you're doing an average though, if you're like on the extra column, you definitely need that to be the same. And in my experience, I needed to do it before I created the pivot table. I'm going to do it right now to give you a quick example, but when I tried it after the pivot table, for some reason, didn't take the updates, and I ended up having to copy all of the data into a new spreadsheet altogether. So to fix the possible points, I'm going to go back to my original data. Normally, I would do this first, like I was saying. So notice here we have 777. Fantastic. Didn't do this assignment, so I can just pull this down. In fact, I'll just go ahead and pull it down for everybody in this group, and then I will check every place where we have missing holes. I just skipped one. I'm going to find one with a few more holes. Some of the newer assignments less the students have done, so I can simply, I picked a class that does a lot of work. Yay. I can pull this down and just fill it in. So if you do that in advance of creating your pivot table, all of your possible points will already be filled in. I'm going to open a trouble ticket with Khan Academy, see if they have no objection to filling that in for us automatically to save that step. But I don't know their reasons, and I don't want to make assumptions on why they don't fill that in. Next issue. Okay, so when you loading new data, another teacher asked me today, what if the scores change? What if someone does some more work? Start the process each time. You're gonna have to download it each time. But notice the actual pivot table set up in probably less than a minute. The filling the points column, that might take a few minutes. So depending on the size of your data set, you could really be up and going 5 minutes for each download. That's, maybe I'm thinking fast, but it's really not a very long time. But yes, unless you come up with a database that will store, but it'll also allow you to insert and overwrite old data with new data, which could be developed, but not as quickly as this. You're going to need to download your CSV each time. And finally, this isn't specific to this issue. I recommend this last tip, no matter how you use Khan Academy, if you're using it for grades or anything, as official as grades. Notice that my names were in the form of last comma first. Now those were of course fake names for FERPA purposes, but my actual kids' names are also in last first, which is not the default on Khan Academy and will not happen automatically. But it's a pretty quick process to do it once and for all with your own class. So if you go under the class settings under your teacher dashboard for each individual class, I cut off the name over here, but if you click this edit display name, if you click edit display name, the name over here will become editable, and then A, B, C, and you can change it around. You only need to do that once. I did read online that you could ask the students to change their own names. The one time I tried that last year, it did not work. I did not see the last comma first, but I'm pretty fast with keyboard shortcuts, and I can do a 30-person class in less than 2 minutes. And that lasts for the whole semester. You just have to fix new students as they come in if you get new students added, which is another issue with grades, but that's beyond the scope of this video. Hope this is helpful. It's definitely saving me time and hurting my eyes less versus scanning all the grades under the scores section in the teacher dashboard. Feel free to comment below if you have further questions, and I hope this has been useful to you.